So, got a couple clarifying questions. Ori, does your Menlo Park home upgrade program apply to multifamily projects at all?
So the kind of direct install whole home components of them are only for single family right now. But there are kind of city additions that are available to multifamily residents. So that's like the mobile air conditioner and backup battery. So if folks are interested in that, we can share information on how to get to that.
And are there neighborhood-based or income-based limitations on the home upgrade services program?
So there for the Yes, for the program, it's an income qualified program. And so it's based on the area median income, and we up the limit to 120% of the area median income. And then the primary focus is on the Bellhaven neighborhood, um, but but it can apply citywide. And then I did want to just flag that this is in partnership with Peninsula Clean Energy through their program. And they and Silicon Valley Clean Energy are running this. So it's not just in Menlo Park, but they're running this income qualified program through all of San Mateo County and Santa Clara County. And then I believe they're rolling out, or they may have already rolled out a market rate direct install program. So definitely want to highlight there that it's not geographically limited to Menlo Park, but some of the additions that we're implementing are Menlo Park specific.
And I received a helpful clarification to just point out that the AB 130 moratorium applies to housing units very broadly. So that does actually include hotel motel uses. Um, Mark, you mentioned you'd gotten positive feedback on the flex paths. Could you elaborate a little bit further? Like, what did people have a positive experience with, or what did what was the basis for the praise that you guys have received?
Yeah, sure. So a lot of the building community engagement we do is through a local organization called Marin Builders Association. And, you know, most of the feedback that we've gotten from them, as well as from individual contractors, and from owner builder applicants that have gone through the flex path, was that the policy is flexible enough, right? It includes enough different options for people to choose from that they can normally find a compliance pathway that kind of really fits very well into the scope of the remodel project anyway. So, and that's really the spirit of the flex path, right? Where instead of kind of making a demand for some prescriptive requirement that may be totally outside of the scope of the project that you actually want to do to your home, right? We're offering options that can easily be incorporated into the project scope. Uh, yeah, so it it's interesting to me that the feedback we got from Marin Builders Association was not that, the flex path is too restrictive or it's too complicated. It was, we really appreciate the flexibility in the flex path, and we wish that everybody just had it instead of, you know, contractors having to work in one Marin jurisdiction, and then they have another project that's 2 blocks away and in a different municipality, and they don't have to follow the requirement there. So.
I think you answered the follow-up question implicitly, but one of our guests pointed out that Marin used to have some of its older green building policies had tiers, right? Where the larger the project or larger the home, the more that was required. Did you consider a super flex path for very large homes or very large projects or anything of that sort, like a gradation as the scale of the project gets bigger?
Yeah, not now, because we're, one of our other goals is always to keep the policy as simple, sort of as simple as possible. And to encourage compliance, right? And then also that yeah, to just to keep policy focused toward the kind of construction that happens most in the county of Marin, which is very much remodel projects in single family homes. So yeah, so that's been our focus for now.
Ori, how did you and your team in Menlo Park come up with $100,000 as the threshold for the flex path for additions and alterations?
Yeah, so we were initially looking at two different options. So the one that was based on affected area, more similar to what Mark had discussed. Um, but the reference materials that we used were, I believe it was from Piedmont, which was based on project valuation and was in our climate zone. And so it was partly a result of the kind of the sprint nature of including it. We needed to use something that we could plug and play that was demonstrated within our climate zone. And so that's how we landed on project valuation. And the 100,000 mark is based on kind of our building officials expertise, and then also like nearby examples, right? So with that, it's a sizable enough project that it would still be feasible to include the additional measures, and should include kind of a large number of the remodels, just given how high construction costs are in our area in particular, and right now generally.
Hmm, okay. Um, and you guys did cover it implicitly, but maybe Mark, just could you just quickly outline the local code adoption process? Like, what steps does the local government go through? So some of our participants are curious about that.
Yeah, so do you mean in terms of the Board of Supervisors process and then the state filing or?
I think just the fundamentals. I mean, I'm not trying to put you on the spot. But I may have asked it oddly, but yes, I think it is just literally the public process.
Yeah, yeah, so we worked on updated ordinance language like throughout the year of 2025, and the Board of Supervisors did a first reading of that on November 4th, and voted to move it forward, and then it was adopted on the county's the Board of Supervisors consent calendar yesterday on the 18th. And so now the next step is to do there are two state agencies that we need to file the ordinance update with. That's the CBSC and the CEC. So we are working right now to put our sort of packet of materials together for that, and hoping it gets approved, and then also hoping that it gets approved kind of on the quicker side so that we can be ready for implementation in the first of the year.
And I got a question about a person was asking whether the emergency health and safety exception is that limited to home hardening, and just no, there are actually multiple separate exceptions. So there is an exception for there actually are repetitive exceptions for home hardening that refer to wildfire safety measures. And then there's also a full line just dedicated to emergency health and safety exceptions in general, which are subject to the Building Standards Commission approval. Um, so Ori, you incorporated home energy score in your flex path. That's a rare and innovation. How did that come about?
Yes, so I think I would need to kind of regroup with my building team on that one. But yes, I think it ties into there are some exceptions also. So I think part of it was just thinking through the implementation of like if we allow them to do that home energy score, um, and they meet kind of a minimum threshold there, then they could qualify for an exception. But if you don't require them, or if you don't give them that option, then they wouldn't be able to qualify for it. So it's kind of an if then flow. But if folks are kind of more interested in specifics, please reach out by email, and I can connect with our building team.
And Mark, this is kind of a follow-up to the last question I posed to you. So sorry to be heavy on process here, but so as you're going through the process and you're submitting your application to the Energy Commission, of course, you would need to bring to them evidence that your local government had made a finding that your energy requirements are cost effective. Um, do you have examples of the question's so broad, it's a little hard to ask. Examples of, yeah, of course, the measures you have are cost effective, so it's a little circular. That's what I'm struggling with. But expected impacts from some key measures, or is there insights that you got through that cost effectiveness calculation process that might be interesting to share?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the cost effectiveness analysis that supports the flex path is it's a very long and extremely dense document that contains a lot of information. I think the sort of like I think the kind of high level takeaway from it is that that supports the flex path just kind of like at a higher level is that there are so many different measures that are included within the flex path, and some of them are very low cost, extremely low cost measures, like Ori mentioned, the one about replacing CFL bulbs with LED bulbs. There are measures through which builders or permit applicants can get points that are simply involve like installing insulation on a water heater, right? Which you can do with material, you can do that for $30 with like a couple things that you bought from Home Depot or whatever. Um, and so that the flexibility is really key to the flex path, and there are low cost compliance pathways, right? There are also, one of the simplest ways that you might comply with the flex path is to replace your gas water heater with a heat pump water heater. You will get all of the points required for flex path compliance through doing just that one thing. Um, but it's more expensive, right, than some of the smaller, cheaper measures.
So for each of those measures, you have data but there is a cost to the measure, and so people can choose whether to invest that cost. But you also have the
Yeah,
data that there's a corresponding, on average at least, net benefit, so a net cost reduction in terms of both the energy cost and maintenance. Is that fair?
exactly. Yeah.
Um, are there lessons that you've learned in the process that you'd think you'd be incorporating through next code updates from just the scars and slings and arrows you've braved?
Yeah. I mean, I'll say that, doing this evaluation, and we really looked at each project that went through the flex path, right, in 2023 and 2024. Um, and, definitely found that some improvement was in order for some of our implementation resources and for the guidance that we were providing to permit applicants. We think that we think that the compliance issues that we encountered were not willful non-compliance necessarily. Like they came as a result of people not knowing which was the right checklist to fill out, or how to fill out a form that we were giving them, right, that was being checked by our building department. Some issues maybe with our building department staff not understanding how completed form was supposed to look as well, that kind of stuff. So it's really, and I always tell people, that are adopting new reach codes, like how important it is to do kind of a periodic evaluation because you learn a lot, right? You know, I work closely with our building department and I have a great relationship with them, but I don't work in the building department. I am not reviewing these green building checklists like as they come in sort of on a daily basis. So there's a little bit of a disconnect, right, between the people who are creating the policy and the people who are actually like implementing or enforcing the policy, and that disconnect can be bridged, I think, by just working closely together and doing regular evaluation of the policy.
That seems like a key aspect of when a county working with a number of cities. So whereas you're maybe a little more focused in a way, or able to be a little more focused, Ori, what are lessons learned in the last year or so that you may be able to incorporate in upcoming work or future work?
Yeah, well, I think the resource sharing and a lot of the support that we were able to receive, through the BayREN codes and standards, and then TRC, and it's a clean energy, right? And the statewide reach codes team is just, like fantastic. Misty and her team, right? Like we wouldn't have been able to do what we did in the speed that we did it without the support of so many people. I'm hoping we don't need to move at that at that pace again, because it kind of forced us to move more quickly than we would have liked. And but I do think, right, like using that as a model, right? Like we're all doing similar things, and if we can kind of work together, I think one of the great spaces for that kind of collaboration has been the San Mateo County Regionally Integrated Climate Action Planning Suite, or RICAPS group. So as Alhad mentioned, right, we're working on kind of smaller projects with representatives from multiple cities working on implementing these things. And to Mark's point, right, like bridging to implementation is going to be key. And so now in this last, I guess it's like 3 weeks left in this year before we are then in 2026, right? And you not only have the new code that's taking effect, the 2025 code, but our reach codes as well. And so, right, like that, the idea that a challenge is an opportunity, right? The challenge of getting staff and the whole building community up to speed on the new codes is also a great opportunity to learn from some of the things that we've done in the past, and then make really clear implementation guides and handouts, and yeah, kind of audit the process and work through that.
Great, great. Thank you. Well, thank you both, Ori and Mark, for your insights and wisdom and just digging deep on some of the work you've been doing. We're going to take a 9-minute break and reconvene at 10:35 with our next panel. Thank you.